Good morning and welcome. My name is Hazel Weatherford. I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Dublin, and we are here today with some great panelists to talk to you about some of the labor challenges that many of you are facing. We recently did a walking tour and went door to door with many of our small businesses, asking what the challenges were that they were facing today and some of the future concerns. And one of the things that kept coming up was just a labor shortage. And so we've put together this amazing panel to talk to you and answer some of the questions that we heard from all of you. And this webinar is being recorded so that we can provide it in the future on our YouTube channel as well as our business newsletter. I'm going to hand it over to Taryn, who is our Special Projects Manager, who will introduce our panel today.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Taryn Gavigan-Botso. I'm the Special Projects Manager for the City of Dublin. Essentially, I oversee all of the COVID-19 business support programs for economic development. Today on our panel, we have three professionals from various agencies that are going to talk to us about navigating the labor challenges, which I'm sure most of you have experienced at some point or another in the recent years. First, we have Ryder Smith from Tripepi Smith. He is the president at Tripepi Smith and oversees business development, public information, strategic messaging, and a slew of other things. We also have Amy Miller from the Tri-Valley Career Center. She oversees special projects and event coordination. And then we have Edgardo Solano from Pacific Cats. Pacific Cats is one of our local businesses in Dublin, and he is their recruitment manager. So he will be giving us his expertise as well today. So the agenda for today's webinar is pretty much going to be discussion from the panelists. We have various topics that I'm going to sort of present. We'll have the panelists give their expertise and feedback and insight on those topics. At the end of the discussion, we'll have a Q&A. So for those viewing the webinar right now, in your Zoom window, there is a Q&A option. Any questions that you have, please enter them in there. And then after the discussion, I'll go through, present the questions to the panelists, and we'll get some answers going for you guys. So let's go ahead. Good morning, everyone. For our first topic, we wanted to discuss some of the hiring challenges that employers are facing today. Various aspects such as labor shortage. There's definitely challenges in being able to find talent, but also how can employers put themselves out there? What are the best avenues for hiring talent these days? Ryder, we'll start with you on that topic if you have anything to provide.
Yes, I have lots of thoughts, and because Hazel and I go way back together, I'm even willing to share some of our secret sauce here at Tripepi Smith. And let me also just wrap a little context around my comments, because we have about 40 people on the team. We're a 100% virtual firm. So you show up on day one, you have a laptop, cell phone, big 32-inch monitor, and we do some training and have you go home and do some more online training, and then off to the races you go. So a different environment than, say, an office environment where people are coming in, or a manufacturing environment. So I do have perhaps a narrow perspective on some of the recruiting issues and challenges that are solving for my particular needs. So one general thing I will say is something we've had for a long time at our firm to help find talent is recruitment bonuses. We pay $750 the day that somebody new starts that you refer to us. And we pay $750 when they have their 1-year anniversary with our firm. We're really proud of the people we hired around here. We think they bought into the culture and the workplace values that are important to us. And I tend to think birds of a feather flock together. So we love having our teammates refer talent to us. And we also know that those candidates come predisposed to be a high propensity performer, as well as interested in the firm because a friend of theirs has referred them to the firm. So $1,500 may sound like a lot, and that's for positions that range anywhere from roughly $55,000 a year up to 100,000 plus. But compared to the amount of effort and energy we would go through trying to recruit through a monster.com and then spend hours and hours sifting through resumes, it really helps us cut through the chase in terms of the referral bonus and supporting that. So that's just one little snippet I'll share about how we found huge value in paying a recruitment bonus. And it's really, I will just note, I think 2/3 of the people on our team are actually here from referrals within the team. So it's kind of been our primary source of adding new talent to the firm here at Tripepi Smith.
Wonderful. Thank you. Amy, did you have any insight to provide?
Yeah, I think definitely something that Ryder touched on, and that is the virtual workspace and the incentive, and that he's had employees that have bought into the culture. I think a lot of what we see, and a lot of the people that we serve are actually like 40 plus professionals who are either have been laid off or want a career change. But a lot of what we hear, a couple things. When people post jobs on our job board, which is free to use, by the way, and I'll send you all the website if you'd like, so that you can check out our website. And we have a lot of resources on there for employers and job seekers. But one of the things we hear a lot of feedback on is a lot of job postings don't include a pay range or a salary range. And so a lot of times that's a deterrent for people to even really click on that to apply. And then also stating something like flexibility or a hybrid sort of schedule, those kinds of things. I think people have come out of this pandemic and a lot of parents are going back to work, yet there's still childcare issues. Some schools are still doing some distance learning. There needs to be some flexibility. And I think that when that is promoted, I think that's really helpful for employers to find people that might be more interested in and to target different types of employees that maybe they wouldn't have gotten. There's a lot more to say. I'm sure it'll come up in the next couple of sections, but just kind of touching on what Ryder said. I love that he talked about the buy-in to the culture. I think that's really key. We get a lot of people who leave jobs because they don't feel appreciated, they feel undervalued, and they don't enjoy the culture. So that's a key component, I think, to attracting people.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Eduardo, do you have any insight you can share?
Yeah, so definitely Ryder and Amy have mentioned a lot, and I think the biggest piece we can all take is creating a welcoming environment and a great culture for the company. In the midst of doing some training as far as recruiting for our company, there came an article on Glassdoor that said about 70% of the people they surveyed, cared more about the culture of the company than basing it off the money piece. So, I think creating that environment creates a buzz. And I think, our marketing team has done a great job to create content for me to use as far as posting on recruiting, a little bit more of a culture and getting more in depth once we have those conversations with our candidates.
I love that you mentioned that, because the internal marketing piece, right, of sort of starting from the inside and pushing it out to really get people to want to come work for you. That's a huge piece.
Yeah, and then we have a pretty cool referral program as well. So and it's uncapped, our team members can make a lot more money that way. The first person they refer, it's $200, and they have to work for a minimum 90 days, but it goes $100 for each person up to about the fourth person. Then it's just $500 each time that they refer somebody. So like I said, I always throw in there, it's uncapped. So, you can make tons more money that way as well.
Nice.
So, and I just want to share an observation too, which is in the hybrid workplace environment or 100% remote workplace environment, I think culture is more important than ever. We launched an executive search service a couple of years ago at the firm. And one of the areas of practice that we had was 3 areas. It was search support, so helping HR directors recruit and do a lot of graphic design and brochures. It was standard executive search. But then the third area was culture curation, which was very unique in this space. But our fundamental belief was, having watched our firm grow as an entirely remote firm, was that in that environment, culture becomes super important for helping people stay connected when they aren't physically present with each other. And how you actually conscientiously think about culture, talk about culture, ingrain that into processes in your organization, reflected in the recruiting materials you use, is, I think, very important to the entire process. Not only because It can attract the right talent, but if you have a culture, let's say it's go, 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 high performance culture, and you have some candidates who are probably more laid back and chill, maybe they aren't a great fit for the culture, and that's okay. Better for them to figure that out before they join the firm. Then you take them through the recruiting process, invest a bunch of R&D into them, and then they wash out after 60 days because it's just a cultural mismatch. So I just think it's really helpful to the overall process and really setting up gates for retention that you have a well-defined culture and wear it on your sleeve during the recruiting process.
Karen, could I add something else too?
Yeah.
Just because I know we're in the section about hiring, and I just wanted to add, and I know that people can look on our website, but some of the things that we find to be really successful are in-person job fairs. We kind of have squeezed them in as we can as like COVID opens, and then it's like, okay, you can do in person, and then it closes. We actually just postponed one of our big job fairs from last week till next month. But I think that people really like to meet in person. I know that's kind of old school now, but I still think there's something to be said about that. And so the Career Center just does host some very large job fairs a few times a year. And we actually do one where we partner with all 5 chambers of commerce, and they end up helping us promote. And I think we had a great turnout last time. We had over 50 employers and 150 job seekers, but we also walk the job seeker through every step of the process. And oftentimes we'll reach out to our employer partners and ask them for help, because you're right there. You're the ones that are actually doing the hiring. So it's really great to have you come in as a guest speaker or to come in and help with mock interviews or resume reviews. And we have a lot of great partners out there in the Tri-Valley that have been doing these things with us for years. And we haven't obviously been able to do a lot of it, but we're starting back up again. We are having a job fair in June on the 15th, and we've already got 30 tables reserved from different employers in the Tri-Valley. And we are open to doing, I think people don't realize, and especially employers, we're not a recruiting agency. So we're not competing with anyone. We're not looking for a profit. We are literally just here to help you connect with local candidates and find good employees. So you can reach out to us at any point. We can do solo hiring events where we just feature your employer, your organization. If you have a lot of different positions, there's a lot of opportunity for employers to have events, and then a ton of opportunities for job seekers to get help with the job search. So
And Amy, I'm so glad you mentioned that, because a lot of people don't know that the Tri-Valley Career Center is a resource available to them. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And I know it was a good segue into the next topic about the best avenues for hiring and sharing some tips. I know as we continue the discussion, we're going to talk about sign-on bonuses and content. I really like those 2 topics, and the city has something to add there, but we'll get back to that later on in the discussion. And just so for all our small businesses that are on here, from office to retail to food and beverage and education, I see I recognize some of the names. There's so many opportunities to share on how to retain and hire that we're also going to get into as well.
On that topic, what are some of the it's changed a little bit since the pandemic. What are some of the avenues for hiring that you guys have seen the most success recently? Is it online, through Indeed or LinkedIn, social media, word of mouth? What have you guys experienced recently?
Yeah, for us here at Pacific Hatch, Indeed's been a big asset for us in that change, and something during the pandemic where, obviously the job fairs weren't there. And, occasionally there was some Zoom job fairs that happened, but not as much as in-person things. So a thing I dived into a little bit was kind of Facebook groups. So if if your business has a Facebook page, definitely dive into groups within different parts of whatever city you're in, topics, and kind of be able to post up your job postings there as well. Have a link to your website or contact information to reach out for these opportunities, and that's been a big shift in helping me out for certain positions as well.
That's great.
I'll just say, at the point we are with our firm, again, consulting firm, 40 people, as the president of the firm, I probably spend 20% of my time or so scanning the horizon, looking for talent. Every new person I encounter, starts to trigger me about whether or not I'm actually conducting an interview with that person while I'm talking to them, given my constant hunt for talent. And some of my teammates laugh at me because they're standing there with me and we start talking, and then suddenly I'm asking them a couple of questions and my teammate looks at me and rolls their eyes because I'm clearly entering recruiting mode. But I spend huge amounts of time on LinkedIn, posting, talking about the firm, celebrating our employees, resharing content from our own LinkedIn feed. But that's become my juggernaut for outreach. If I see somebody who's got a nice profile out there that seems to check the right boxes for our needs, and we share a lot of common people, which suggests they're probably in similar industry for where I'm in, then that kind of moves them up a list of people, and I'll just casually reach out and check in with them, see what they're up to, and segue it into a conversation about doing a meet and greet on video chat, and then see where it goes from there. So
I'll just add to that. We spend a lot of time at the Career Center encouraging and teaching our job seekers about LinkedIn and networking and the importance of that. And I even work with high school students, and we do that sometimes too. So we do understand that, and we do try to market, and we often go to Indeed, and I will pull off interesting job listings and share them directly out with some of our job seekers. We have a job club that meets every Thursday morning, and it's basically a support networking group. And it's kind of a great opportunity when we will bring in an employer to be able to sort of have the floor. It's not a hiring event per se, but it's helping the job seeker understand what employers who are hiring are looking for in different industries.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Just the opportunity to network, right, where you wouldn't normally have that opportunity. That's great. Okay, we can go ahead and move on to the next topic of retaining talent. So obviously our discussion on culture and sort of internal marketing and really pushing out, the foundation of your company is also a huge part in attracting, but also retaining your existing employees. What is some feedback or insight or experience shares on, your experience in retaining employees? Maybe it's your own personal, what keeps you at your own company, and what have you guys seen change, since the pandemic and in the last couple of years? How have you seen that shift? Do you feel like it's more challenging to keep employees right now? How on top of things do you have to be for that?
shall I go first?
Go for it.
Okay. So first thing, I think key to retention is to take your departures and try to make some lemonade out of the lemon of a departure, assuming it's an employee that you're disappointed is leaving. In those circumstances, having an exit interview process to effectively learn from the people who are choosing to leave is important, because that's a cohort, right? Those are people who are choosing to opt out. So make sure you take advantage of those opportunities as much as you can to explore the reasoning behind it and try to use that data or that information and feedback to address whatever the issue may be, right? Mm-hmm. You might as well, they're on their way out. They're probably willing to speak more freely than otherwise on their way out the door too, right? So it's kind of a unique situation. Number two, observe where people are going. Are people leaving your business to go to a competing business, or people leaving your business to go to a completely different industry, right? And I think what I've observed in the last couple of years is there's been a reset in people's career priorities and changes. And so we've had some departures here at the firm. It's not like I've nailed this and we've had zero, we've had 100% retention. We've lost some great people at the firm. But one thing I take a little bit of solace in is that the people that left our firm didn't leave for any of our competitors. They went to completely different industries when they left Tripepi Smith. And it doesn't mean I'm happy that they departed, but it at least tells me something about where I am relative to my competitors in the space that I'm operating in. And oftentimes these battles for talent are really about battling for a cohort of talent who are interested in the particular sector you're in. So for me, that's been super helpful to understand that reality and to just contemplate where it is that people are going and think both in terms of being an attractive employer, but also relative to my competitors, where I am in the space.
Great feedback.
Yeah, for us, it's what I appreciate about our company is that we're very transparent with all our team members across the board. And, anybody from our corporate team or executive team are always have a presence in the restaurants as well, and acknowledging with our team members and building these relationships, and our senior leaders and other mid-level managers have also been able to establish great trust within their team members, and it builds a great camaraderie that they build on some success with, and that's helped retain a lot of our team members. We have team members that range that have been with the company from 1 year all the way to 17 years with the company. So the ability to grow with us as a company continues to grow is a big key piece for us as well.
And I'll share from two perspectives. One, the Tri-Valley Career Center where I work and I'm an employee, they have just a great team culture there. And I think it helps to retain employees. And they've had people that have worked there for quite a long time. And we all kind of hang on. We might move around from position to position, but we try to hang on because we like being part of the organization, which is the Tri-Valley Career Center, for those that don't know, is a service of the Chabot Las Positas Community College District. But we're not located on either college campus. We serve the community at large. And a couple of things we have to help employers retain employees. We have an OJT program, which is called on-the-job training. And we use that with our clients. And basically it is, if an employer wants to train an employee, they have to hire them as a full-time employee. We will pay them up to $5,000 to train the employee, and they have to agree to retain the employee after the training. So it's like your ROI is right there, right? You have this guarantee that you're going to put some training in and you're going to get to keep the employee and you're going to get some reimbursement for that. So we do have a program that funds that. And if you're interested, obviously just reach out. We have information and we have someone who runs that program for us. Obviously, there's some criteria to meet, but we find that does help many employees or employers get some employees and retain them. Because I think training just in general, whether you're being reimbursed for it or not, is really key. I think a lot of employees who are switching careers get nervous. They're going into a new job and they maybe met, 75% of the qualifications on the list, and they interviewed well and they got hired. And a lot of people go in fearful that they're not going to be able to match what the employer is looking for. So I think training is really key to retaining employees. And then you guys have mentioned a lot of stuff about incentives and bonuses and feedback and all of that kind of stuff. I think is all really important too. And there's one other thing that I want to mention. That's a program that we have, and it's not necessarily about retaining employees, but it does help the small business community. And that's the micro business grants that are being offered right now. They're $2,500 grants for very small business owners who suffered during the pandemic and were in business back in 2019 and are still in business, but could use a little help. So I wanted to just throw that out there in case people are interested in that as well that are on the call.
Thank you, Amy. Oh, sorry, Taryn.
No.
Thank you for sharing that, because Taryn will, after the end of this webinar, she'll share the information with those that have registered.
Oh, great.
We were going to save questions till the end, but there's a relative topic for you, Amy, when you talked about the job club. If you could talk about that a little bit more.
Sure. And it's kind of gone through some iterations, I think, because of the pandemic. So the way it used to be is it was literally people showed up at our center. We'd sit in a big circle in a room. There'd be about 30 people. And it was basically a support group, but also a networking group. So it was people that were in the job search in all different industries connecting with each other. And then oftentimes the facilitator was someone from the Career Center who would either bring a topic to discuss or a guest speaker. We've even had some subgroups form out of those groups, people that were industry specific and kind of started to meet together. We've had a self-care group because we recognize the stress that, job seekers are experiencing. So we actually have another completely separate meeting called self-care that's led by a therapist from Access Community Health. All of these are free to the community. You do not have to be a client. We do have client programs, but the job club then went online. So we meet weekly through Zoom. Sometimes it's a very intimate group and sometimes it's a bigger group, depending if we have a guest speaker or not. We are actually having our very first in-person job club this week on Thursday at 10 a.m. at the Career Center, which is in Pleasanton. I can give all that information, or if I can give it to you ladies and you can send it out, but it'll be our first in person. We're going to have the staff there so that people can meet the staff. Some people have never met our staff in person, right? It's all been on Zoom for the last couple of years. So, it's kind of changing, and we sort of do it based on the needs that are expressed by the people who attend. And anyone is welcome, and you don't have to come every week. Some people come every week. Some people drop in once in a while. And oftentimes people have networked in that group, and, someone may have, applied for a job at a company they really liked and share the information. And it's a really good opportunity for job seekers to find out what other people are using as resources and, just to connect.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've done business roundtables with specific industries like food and beverage, retail, fitness, education. And through those, we've learned of great tips, like with Pacific Cats. That's where we learned about their sign-on bonus and all the different things that they were doing. And they created their own mobile app. Now, not every business can do that, but it offered opportunities for others to learn best practices from each other. So I love what you're saying, Amy, because that is very true. Being together and networking with each other, that's how you learn what others are doing, what's working well for others. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Oh, there's a follow-up question. Can we post a job opening through the job club?
You can share your job opening with me, and I can share it with the job club. If you're a guest speaker, obviously you can talk about all the openings you have, but the Career Center has a job board that is free for anyone to post. And if you have tons of postings, like sometimes I know Indeed will give you an XML feed. This is for the employers. We can take that XML feed and populate our job board with that, but you are also welcome to just post manually. And again, when you see the Career Center's website, you just go to the employer section, and it's super easy to post a job there. Yeah. And then also it's super easy to search jobs there if you're a job seeker.
Awesome.
Did I answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so we will go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is developing talent. We've talked a little bit about that already. But this is an opportunity to just talk about best practices that either you guys do now or have done in the past. Topics such as like promoting within. Does your company practice that often? Has that changed over the last couple years? And then any examples of unique incentives that your organization provides to train and develop talent. Ryder, you want to start us off?
I was going to put Ryder on the spot as well, but let me get some context to that, or let me add a little bit more to that. One of the things I like to do is I follow as many businesses as I can in our community on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, just so I have kind of my thumb on what's going on. And a lot of the people that are not on social media platforms, maybe we can start there, and how powerful that tool is, especially for the younger generations as you're trying to attract talent. And maybe primarily in the food and beverage industries or retail. And one of the things maybe, Ryder, you could touch on is when you are developing content, what should you be developing? What should your posts look like? What should you be including? One of the things I heard, or I actually shared with someone, was who better to tell your story than the people that are currently working for you? Grab your phone, grab a video of someone that's working for you, and let them tell your story for you, and put that online so that others can hear that and be attracted to why they want to come work for you as you are looking to recruit talent. So there you go, Ryder. I teed it up for you.
Yeah, I think you answered the question. That was great. So a couple, I think what you're describing there, particularly about just grabbing a camera and recording some videos, and I'm sure there's some employment labor law attorneys and others that are freaking out right now over that idea, but nonetheless, we're going to bypass them. I think it speaks to authenticity, which goes back to culture. Part of attracting folks to come to your team is to have a fun place to work. And that's going to be defined much more by their coworkers than necessarily the CEO sitting in the suite that's trying to manage the totality of the business. And I also think that when you expose your talent to the world and share them and celebrate them, frankly, as members of the team that you want to that you want to invest in by putting media behind them and talking about them, I think that sends a big message to them too, that you're willing to invest in them, which is 100% true for us. We have teammates on our team who we feature. We talk about who's on this team. We talk about their recent wins in terms of achieving certifications or if completing a certificate course or completing an online exam for some particular niche solution. So those things, when you celebrate them, they signal to your employees that those are values that are important to you, because you want to talk about it and brag about it to your customers and prospective employees. And then for the prospective employees, they see an organization that's willing to invest in its staff, and that's an attractor, right? That recruits talent or retains talent. And so it's something that's, really worth doing. It's not, so ultimately when you think about it, when you invest in the training, you're not just investing in new skills for that particular employee, but if you actually put a little media behind it, you're creating an entire recruiting process and campaign that's affirming your need to bring on talent. And then the last thing I'll point to is the kind of people who react to that, the kind of people who react to, hey, this is a firm that seems like they want to invest in their people. Those are the kind of employees you want, right? Because they're learners. They're people who want to grow their skills. They're people who have the learning ethic and the work ethic to go make an impact in organizations. And that's exactly the kind of person you want walking through the door trying to get a job with your organization. So it's really, I think it's a super helpful tool to talk about and celebrate.
Thank you.
I'd love to tie in a little bit. I think from the pandemic, it shifted a lot of what our regular business was kind of built on, of being able to adapt to all the changes and regulations of different counties, and slowly reopening again with, takeout was a majority part of our business. So you kind of lost a little bit of that hospitality, customer service aspect of it, especially when you're hiring new team members in. So, being that we're opened up a lot more as a society, we really focused this year on training. So, really having newly hired team members go through, like for managers, senior level managers will go through a 4-week program of training, and then an additional 8 weeks of weekly training. We do, about new safety protocols, training on a weekly basis for hourly positions as well. So keeping them informed with whatever new tips we want, or if there's issues going on that we need to tackle on and make aware of. And it's been taken on really well. People give us good feedback, and slowly creeping up that everybody's participating in that training every week. And the big piece for us is always investing in our people. It's something that I communicate tremendously in interviews with candidates. I always tell them, if you bring a great work ethic, it's never going to go unnoticed. And it's all determined on how you want to take that opportunity and grow along with the company. And it's definitely one of the great companies I've worked with that really invest in our people, giving them the tools to succeed with us. And I always tell them, it's sky's the limit where you can go with Pacific Hatch as we continue to grow.
So I'll just jump in and add, I love the things that I'm hearing from both of you, just when I think of the employees, but I'm just going to go back to the very basic and the beginning, and that is just the human connection. And I think, a lot of that, gets missed these days. You have the ATS systems, and you have all of this apply online and all of that. And if I could stress anything, it's to be responsive. There's nothing worse than sending your resume off and hearing nothing, and unfortunately that seems to be not a common practice, but it does happen quite a bit to some of our job seekers, where they will send off their resume and they may not be qualified and they may not be a good candidate, but it would still be helpful for them to know that and to hear something back. So if I could suggest anything, it would be to be responsive to applicants, no matter what system you're using, and then also, one of the things that we were talking about, videos, one of the things we had started pre-pandemic and a little bit during the pandemic, and then we had a lot of transition, but was employer spotlights. So what we like to do is have employer spotlights, where we'll just do a very casual interview with an employer, and then we'll post it on our YouTube channel. And then when we have job fairs, or we have a job club guest speaker, or just any opportunity for that employer to be in front of our job seekers, we'll make sure that everybody has seen that video. Hey, here's how you can even prepare. It'll give you a heads up about who you're going to be meeting today. And so we want to kind of start that up again. I think that, really all I could say is the personal touch, and then all of these incentives and really taking care of your employees, I think, is what makes the difference for people.
Coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of psychological challenge and damage that was done, I suspect. Well, I believe. But certainly probably all of us had a personal experience where we just lost touch with our friends and connections, or we lost that human interaction and that human experience of belonging. from isolation, and offering an environment that gives people a chance to recreate that, cobble that together as they've emerged from the pandemic is a huge competitive advantage in the recruitment process. It goes back to something we keep talking about, which is culture. But I really think that's a super important aspect of all three of these areas we would talk about, whether it's the hiring or keeping people, or ultimately how you're developing that talent and making them feel like they belong as part of a learning culture and organization that wants to grow together.
And just to add to that, Ryder, I agree with you. I also think there are some people who thrived in the environment of being home and working from home. I wasn't necessarily one of them, but my other half was, and I think to keep in mind that there are some people now that are having some anxiety about going back into the office and doing all that. And I think offering that hybrid type of remote, or slow return to, in the office every day. I don't know, just keeping in mind who your employees are. And I think how they work best, because I think what we've learned from the pandemic more than anything, whether it's education or the workplace, is that people have different styles of working, and some are more productive and, doing it a different way than what we've always been doing. So.
Well, that's always been an area. I mean, first of all, not every job, right, can be done remotely, right? That's one of the challenges.
Of course.
Like, I'm sure that food service workers can't, like, they got to show up. They can't make food sitting at their, I mean, I guess they can make food in their kitchen, but I'm not sure they got the commercial permits to do as such anyways. But fundamentally, there's certain jobs that allow you to be remote, and there are certain people who are designed to work in remote environments. Like, psychologically, they're built for it. And we see it come through here. Like, one of our questions when we talk to people is, are you really okay working from home, or is this just like, or you're not, right? Do you thrive on having to have an office? And we've seen some of that with, say, some younger recruits where they're fresh out of college. They want to get into an office environment with a bunch of other 20 somethings and have that experience where they go to the company cafeteria together, or they all go to lunch together, and, they kind of continue their college experience to the extent their final year of college was actually in person. And like, for those people that want that, it's like, okay, we're not the place for you, and that's okay. You go do you. But for us as a 100% remote firm, these are the things that, we're going to be in a home office. You will get to interact with your fellow employees. We have some other things we do to help create some physical interaction space with our teams. But for the most part, you either are into it or you're not. And I think some of the challenges is some of the employees, you need to help them discover for themselves, are they really that kind of person, right? Like, are you a remote work person, or are you a person who feeds off the energy of people around you, and you need that physical presence in order to shift your mind from, I'm at home petting my cat and doing laundry, to I'm at the office and I'm at work and I'm making food, or bending metal, or whatever it is that, the job is that's in the physical environment.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick perspective of how it was. We were in the office 100% before the pandemic, and kind of shifting to working from home. I think I've been able to have a bit more productivity. If you imagine, I was living in the East Bay, traveling to Marin, and that's an hour and a half commute going. So 3 hours of my commute, was being stuck in traffic. So those 3 hours converting to waking up, having a cup of coffee, and getting started early to my day, it has been such a benefit for me. And being able to, spend that extra hour reviewing resumes or setting up my interviews for the week. So it's pros and cons to it, but I think that it works well if you're up to it.
Yeah, my team would say, for those who can work remote work has certainly, for those who came from an office environment, they talk about their increase in productivity being remote workers, from just the lack of chitter chat and discussion and distraction that happens at the office. Like, you're much more isolated and shut out from that, right? And this actually is kind of an interesting correlation, because there's been a lot of articles lately about the open office environment and what a failure that is for productivity. It may create cohesion and collaboration with people, but the collaboration comes at a cost of inefficiency. And so there's been this revisit of, should we go back to isolated offices to create more isolated space for people to have focus in their work? But there's very few things that are more isolating and more, than actually having an entirely remote workforce, right? Because now they can literally shut off their IM chat and their email if they need to focus for an hour and just write an article, and not worry about somebody knocking on the door. I mean, if your boss is knocking on your door at your home, you got a different problem.
So I wanted to go back and circle back before we go into Q&A and talk about content. I know we talked about videos to kind of promote your business, But what about if they're not doing videos? And this may be more for Ryder and Edgardo is, what platforms should they be using? Is there a preference of one over the other? Like, I know Instagram's more popular with the younger generation, LinkedIn or Indeed. And then if they're doing what content, maybe Ryder, like, what should they be focused on? Like making sure there's an image always, because images attract people, making sure it's a good image, a bright image, and what information should they have on there? I know, Amy, you mentioned about making sure you always have the salary on there. So maybe sharing some tips when it comes to marketing online.
So yeah, and I should, I think Hazel keeps directing me, and you did a good job trying to get me there the first time you asked that question, Hazel, and I definitely sidestepped it. First of all, our firm does social media and marketing communications for public agencies, which is how Hazel and I got to know each other. And so we're in this space doing this kind of work. So there's this amazing, for our purposes and our audience that we need to reach, we are primarily going after LinkedIn users. So that's where we spend the bulk of our efforts on recruiting. It's the most important social media platform we have. It's the one where we have the most followers and the most engagement. So we invest heavily in that particular platform, and it suits the mix of talent that we're trying to recruit. If you were looking for earlier job experience or less job experience folks who are maybe also tend to be younger, maybe you'd be using Instagram or TikTok or something like that to try to reach a different demographic, right? So be thoughtful about the demographic you're trying to reach with what you're communicating. Second thing I would just note is there's this wonderful tool called Canva. Most communicators have gotten used to it. It's like kind of the Adobe Creative Suite for people who don't want to spend $60 a month on Adobe Creative Suite and don't have years of time to learn how to use all the tools and features. But Canva helps you come up with great little graphics and animated text elements and things like that to put together some nice graphics and visuals. And it's 100% the case, just like it was with the early days of the internet with blinky text. Like if you're scrolling through that news feed and there's some slightly animated text or a beautiful image, you want to be using that content to help get people to pause for 2 seconds. That's all you're going to get. Give me 2 seconds of attention to see if I can inspire you to learn more about my organization based upon this nice looking graphic, whether it's a catchy word or a now hiring or a friendly smiling face in the workplace with the workers doing whatever it is that they do. So be thoughtful about the imagery that's going along with the content that you're explaining or offering, so that you can hopefully attract somebody's brief attention to get them to engage in that content. And then the other thing I would generally observe is it's one thing to get somebody to pause and maybe click, right? That call to action, you have a click through and they come to your website, right? Or some platform where you want to talk about working at your organization. Now there's a much bigger palette on which you're creating content to talk about. Like, do you have some embedded nice corporate videos you put together? Do you have some great stock photography you shot of your organization to really explain or demonstrate what that environment is like or the kind of people that work there? Do you have highlighted bios on your team members so people can read a bio and go, oh, I see myself as Sally, or I see myself as Bob or Edgar. Like I can envision myself being one of these people because I can connect with the details that are presented there. So that's when you get into a much longer, bigger form. And then you talk about culture there too, right? To explain what the culture is all like and is all about. So people can say, that's the kind of culture that reflects my values and I'm going to be a part of that culture. Or they look at it and say, no, those people sound crazy. I don't want to be a part of that culture. And that's okay. So that's kind of like the spectrum of things I think about in terms of that content development, having those things in place. The last thing I'll just make a point about is, the iPhones and cameras in general and the modern Android are incredible. While we certainly do a lot of photography on very high-end $5,000 cameras and lenses, and it does look different, your iPhone or your high-end Android can do some great work with capturing photos and some candids that you can put to work for you on social media to help really pitch what it's like to work at your organization and why everybody seems super happy working there and why everybody should get on the bandwagon and come join where the grass is greener.
I love that you shared that tool of Canva because I use that myself and I'm not a graphic designer, but sometimes I feel like it because that tool is very nice.
It's a great
for
tool.
those that may not be familiar, it's Canva, and we'll share that tool in our follow-up email as well. But Edgardo, what else do you have to add to that as well? Because I know you guys are on the cutting edge as well of doing attraction as well.
Yeah, so we use all Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, to kind of just share the same content in all platforms. Obviously, LinkedIn more topics about our sustainability, more focused on our people and recruiting aspect. But Karen, who's a marketing coordinator for our team here, does such an awesome job in creating content. And like how Ryder just mentioned, just simple iPhone video editing and transition pieces, making short highlights of our menu, or being able to, we pick a location each quarter to go and highlight certain team members and kind of do a little bio and the company, names they may have at the restaurant.
I don't know if it's me or did we lose Edgardo?
No, I think, yeah, we lost them.
One of the things we have at Tripepi Smith is we pay a stipend to our employees of $40 a month to maximize their bandwidth.
So invested in creating.
I think we're losing you, Edgardo.
Uh-oh.
Sorry, I think I lost signal there.
Okay. There you are.
You're back.
All right. So I'm not sure where it cut off last. So we use all platforms to create content with the marketing team, and also we like to highlight our team members through different restaurants each quarter, and really doing a whole bio on them, as far as, nicknames that they may be called at the restaurant, following the restaurant, kind of seeing what their job duty is every day, and asking what they love about working with Pacific Hatch and working along with their team members on a daily basis. So I think that's helped a lot to highlight that piece for the recruiting aspect, and continuing to, we opened our first Southern California location last October in San Diego. So kind of really being involved in community events and then, being able to document all that process of prep work for the event and interactions with our guests and people, experiencing our food for the first time. So that's been really cool to see and being displayed, and it's really been able to elevate our presence in the market where we haven't been before.
And I love that you mentioned community events, because that's an opportunity with the city that we have through our farmers market and other opportunities of our festivals that we have throughout the year that our small businesses can get involved in and get their name out there. We also, in addition to what Amy mentioned about their spotlights, we're going to be launching a new small business spotlight every month where we spotlight our existing businesses. We do a good job at announcing who's coming and welcoming them to the community. But as part of our recovery efforts, we wanted to go back and really highlight those businesses that have been here. And that's something that we will be launching, and more information will be coming out about that as well. But I know we're getting short on time, and we're going to go into our Q&A. So Taryn, I'll hand it back over to you and see if there's any questions from the audience.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at the moment, but now would be a great time if anyone who's watching or listening in, if you're able to put in a question to the Q&A, now would be a great opportunity. Just give you guys a minute if you have any questions.
And while you guys are thinking of questions, I just want to take a moment to share that the city has a small business survey that we've been doing for the last 2 or 3 weeks. We're getting ready to close that today. So if you haven't filled that out, please do so, because it's going to help us understand what some of the current challenges and future challenges you're facing. One of the things, and that's why we put this webinar together today, is the labor shortage. Understanding how also on marketing, some businesses are like, this is great, this all sounds great, but I don't always have the time to do all of these things. And so another tool that we use in the city is Hootsuite that will help us with all of our platforms. So from LinkedIn to Facebook to Instagram. So that's another tool that we'll also mention, include in the email that is coming out. But through the survey, it will help dictate what kind of programs and resources that we're going to put together for our small businesses. One of the things that we've been considering is a sign-on bonus, where the city would use the American Rescue Plan Act funds, the ARPA, to help with sign-on bonuses for small businesses, because we know that's a burden to do a financial contribution like that. But we're waiting for the survey responses to really identify where the strongest needs are. In addition to that, we're also thinking of putting a panel together, or I should say a consultant bench with consultants in different areas to help, like we could get, for this is an example, like an attorney, a marketing consultant, a business plan expert to help our small businesses in those different areas. And we would provide you with 10 hours of service, and you would let us know what the need is. So someone who's never been on social media before may need to know, how do I start this? How do I create it? What should I call, what should my handle be? So we would be providing you those services. And so that's a program we're calling the Business Navigator program, that we would help our businesses in those different areas. Because what we're understanding now in recovery is it looks different for every type of business industry sector. And so how do we help identify all those different needs that are smaller? Well, by putting together this bench of consultants to help in those answer those questions for you. So that's something else we're looking at as well. But again, we want to see the responses to the survey to understand where the biggest need is. But some of the takeaways today that I heard was the sign-on bonuses, flexibility as you're marketing your positions, making sure that you're putting the salary range, using the job boards that exist, like with Amy and the Tri-Valley Career Center, and then putting content up on social media so people can know you and understand what you're offering. And then Taryn, I'll hand it back over to you. I don't know if there's any questions that have come up.
No questions yet. I did want to add, Hazel, to those topics. So recurring theme, I think in our 3 different discussions was know your audience. I think that that's so important, whether it's recruiting or developing or retaining, talking to your people. One thing that really stuck out to me was the exit interviews. Take that opportunity to gain feedback, especially if it's going to be more candid. That's a huge selling point. We did share some links in the chat for those who are able to see the chat and access it. If you're not listening in, there's a link to the business needs survey. And then Amy also included a link to the Tri-Valley Career Center. We will again send a follow-up email with all of the information and links to everyone who registered for the webinar. So if you're not able to access the chat, don't worry, we'll get it to you. I did also want to mention the city has a couple different ideal ways of just keeping up on updates and communications. We recently launched text messaging communications. I will go ahead and include the link in the chat as well to sign up for that. This is just a really easy, convenient way to keep in touch with the Office of Economic Development. It does go 2 ways. So while the city will be sending out updates or news when programs are available, you can also text us if you have questions or concerns. That's a great way to make sure that they get in conveniently. And then we also have our Dublin Business Brief newsletter. It's a bi-monthly newsletter that's sent out from the Office of Economic Development, but also includes occasional issues, special issues that are specific to updates for business recovery or COVID-19. So this link that I'm sending out right now, you are able to sign up for both the text messaging communications and the Dublin Business Brief. There we go. And we don't have any questions from the attendees, so I think we're good.
We're just that effective.
We answered all the questions without any being asked.
Edgardo, I just want to say that I took a moment here to pursue Pacific Catch on your website, and you have a heck of a menu there. I look forward to enjoying one of your meals at the restaurants in the future soon.
Please do.
Their fish and chips are my favorite.
I know the poke is really good too.
I'm the son of an Alaskan fisherman and Alaskan boat owner up there. So we caught a lot of halibut and black cod in life, and so I'm a sucker for some good Pacific fish.
Well, I
Definitely
want to
have it
thank
for
you
ya.
all for your time today, Ryder, Amy, and Edgardo. Thank you so much for talking to our business community and sharing your knowledge and expertise in these fields. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to continue our conversations in the future.
Thanks for
Thank you for
having us.
having me.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.